Good morning, folks. It's Otter again. Welcome to another morning lap. Today, I'm going to be chilling out on a blue groomed run, which may confuse a little bit of you since I specialize more in steep technical riding. Today, I'm going to be talking about what carving on a groomed run has in common with techniques that we need for riding steep and technical terrain, and how improving your carving skills can then help you with your skidded turns in steep terrain. There are two big similarities we're going to focus on. And the first one is going to be the timing of our edge change. Now, when I'm teaching people at level 1, their very first day of snowboarding, we simplify things by telling them not to tip to a downhill edge and to wait until the nose of their board has pointed down the hill to engage their new edge. This prevents them from ever experiencing that dreaded edge catch, and especially having a tailbone digger. However, once we get a little more advanced and we're more comfortable carrying some momentum across the slope, we are able to make an edge change where the edge we tip to is actually downhill of us. So, the more correct way to state things is that we should never tip to an edge against our momentum. So when we're carving, we're going to be carrying more speed across the slope and skidding less, so we get our momentum pointed sideways. Therefore, we can tip to that downhill edge, but it's not against the momentum. So I'm going to go forward, give you a little demonstration of this. I'm going to pull over about halfway down this run, kind of give a little review of that, and then talk about the second commonality between carved turns on a groomed slope and the way you might want to make skidded turns on a double black diamond run. So here we go. Edge changes while my board is pointed across the fall line. Except maybe not these top two turns, because a little flat here. I'm going to make those open shaped. After that, we'll move into closed carved. Here we go. Whiteboard here. Okay, so as I described earlier, we often tell folks if this is the fall line that we need to let the board fall into the fall line, releasing an old edge before we then engage the new edge as we go more perpendicular to the slope. However, once we're more comfortable carrying momentum this direction, we can tip to that downhill edge, and it's not against the momentum. So that allows us to get on that new edge sooner, begin the turn sooner, and start controlling our speed a little bit sooner. Now, if we get into steep terrain, this early edge change becomes vital, even though we're probably not going to make carved turns in steep terrain. If it's a steep, wide open POW field, then perhaps you're banking a little bit to get a carved turn, even though it's on the base of your board, not an edge. However, when you're making really tight turns, wiggling around trees, moguls, and trying to stay as in control of the speed as possible, it's important to get to that next edge before the board points down the hill. That way, we can maximize the amount of time that our edge is in contact with the snow and creating friction. And then we minimize the amount of time that our board is releasing an edge while falling down the slope and creating acceleration. So I teach this a lot at levels 4 and 5, that we can control speed not only through turn type, which generally is going to be skidding and letting your edge sweep across the snow to create friction, there's a second way that without actually skidding, we can control speed. And this is vital when you're making carved turns. A lot of people don't actually do this, and it's why they don't make more than 2 or 3 carved turns in a row before they have to put on the brakes and skid. So we can skid to turn, or we can control speed with our turn shape. So an open turn, as I've said before, is one that might look like this, where although we turn side to side, the nose never points across the fall line. Okay? Well, I suppose, yes, it's crossing the fall line, but it doesn't become perpendicular to it. Now, open turns are going to allow us to carry a lot of speed. If we make a closed turn, being one that starts and ends perpendicular to the fall line, then we're going to shed more speed. And that applies whether it's a skidded turn or a closed turn. And when we do a carved turn, we carry more momentum because our edge hasn't made so much friction, and we actually get the ability to carry that momentum and work back up the slope. And that becomes essential in steep terrain, where sometimes you may actually be able to sweep back up over a mogul to get more speed control than if you were just skidding next to the mogul or around it. As I head down this next pitch, I'm gonna try a couple of times to let my nose not just point across the slope over towards the trees, but to actually let it start briefly pointing back up the hill so that I'm getting more speed control. Now, I don't want to go too far with this, because if I run my momentum out, then I lose my opportunity to make that early edge change. Gravity starts acting on me more than my momentum back up the slope, and it would become dangerous to engage a downhill edge at that point. So carry some momentum up the slope, but don't linger too long. I'm maybe going to go 3-4 feet back up the hill. And also, when you are trying these out, big safety piece, because we can't see what's behind us, and for snowboarders, that's more often happening on our heel side turn. Use your toe side turns as an opportunity to assess who's above you, how they're riding, and if you're gonna have enough space to make that heel side turn. And then when you do heel side turn, give a quick look up the hill as much as you can crank your neck while doing so. All right, that being said, a little bit of slightly uphill edge change now, carrying that momentum through the carved turn. Here we go. Engage. We're coming up, and edge change. Oh yeah. Coming back up the slope, and edge change before you lose that opportunity. Coming back up the hill, edge change. Oh, what a joy carving is. Then we're up the hill, edge change. If you don't have much momentum, then make it a subtle edge change, because you need that momentum to balance against, and you'll go down if you take too high an edging. And change. Woo-wee. And we'll go on under the bridge. And we'll carve it. Early edge change. Well, unfortunately, there are plenty of other folks out here just side slipping their way down. So I'm not sure if you'll be able to pick it out. I can kind of identify a couple of my tracks there because they're very wide turns with deep trenches and a slight uphill sweep at the end. There's one there. Looks like I actually went maybe 5-6 vertical feet back up the slope before I made that edge change. So you practice doing this in a carved turn on a groomer, you're gonna force yourself to get comfortable changing edges before the nose of your board's pointed down the hill, and also going to gain that ability to carry momentum back up the slope when you need it. Really, really handy tool when you're riding in technical terrain, say on a traverse, and maybe you slip off the traverse, you need to be able to sweep back up onto that traverse track. Or even if you're just riding with some buddies and maybe they take a turn you didn't expect, you're a few vertical feet below them, it's nice to be able to then take your momentum and direct it actually back up the slope. Really cool things we can do breaking the downhill edge change rule. And perhaps in some later videos, I'll get into actually applying this in some steep terrain. But I would encourage you to try this on groomed runs using a carved turn to build up your comfort with this, and probably not try to make that early edge change and anything too steep or technical until you're 100% comfortable doing it on a mellower slope. Well, I hope you learned some from that. Go out and try it yourself. See how close you can get to having one of your turns get back up and nearly touch the bottom of the previous turn. You may not be able to actually connect it and make a figure eight, but it's a great challenge and gets you very proficient controlling your speed with turn shape rather than turn type. I'll see you in the next video. Happy shredding.